Okay, so welcome to this session, which is going to be about managing people and managing people within Practice Managers Association. So we're going to be starting very shortly. We'll just hang fire a little bit more. If you haven't already done so, there is a previous live class to this one, which is in leading people, which you can find on the same YouTube channel. And if you are watching this live, you can make comments throughout the session. If not, then feel free to message me afterwards or via email or communicate to me underneath in the comments box, and I'll be able to answer any particular questions on this subject. So let's just check what's going on. So we're coming up to 7 o'clock now. So the purpose of this live class, again, we're going to make it as short and brief as we can to get the key points to help you understand more in the different workbooks which be giving you. So the objectives of this session in managing people, we're going to be looking at performance management, ways in which you can increase performance and management within a team. We're going to touch upon how you can assess performance in the team. What does a high performance team look like and how do you manage it? And we're also going to go into a couple of details about motivational techniques, Herzberg theory and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So they're the key objectives of this session. For those of you that are working live through some workbooks, we're not going to cover all the points tonight, but there will be some additional learning which will be happening after this has taken place. So first of all, I mean, how do you currently manage a team in your organization and how do you drive high performance from them? You may be managing their individual goals. You may be managing the team's goals in general, or you may be looking at things like motivating them to drive high performance. Well, interestingly, performance management comes under many different areas, which we're going to just look at on this bit of paper. You can manage performance by, of course, setting goals. Now, some of you may already have key performance indicators, objectives. Maybe there are coaching, learning and development goals which you need to help and be a part of at the same time. At the same time, you can have 360-degree feedback. Now, if you don't know what 360-degree feedback is, it's a type of appraisal where you're going to get feedback to give back to the staff member in many different areas. In a traditional one-to-one or supervision or appraisal, it is the manager giving feedback to the learner or to the staff member. However, in 360-degree feedback, you can have the other team members give feedback. You can have maybe customers' feedback implemented. It's supposed to give the employee a much rounder picture of what all the views of them are. It can be positive in many ways. A lot of managers don't like it because they feel it could cause potential conflict in the team, especially when there are some peer-to-peer reviews happening within that at the same time. It's up to your discretion. However, very good at being used as a form of appraisal in that setting. I mean, a one-to-one meeting or a supervision meeting or appraisal. In many organizations, you know, these happen maybe annually, every 6 months, or a quarterly performance review. You should be trying to get a lot more out of that. Okay, having the more formal appraisals every 6 months or annually is fine. But remember, that's not going to drive high performance, and that's not going to help the team create a better understanding of what they want. You want to be able to have these miniature one-to-one appraisals, maybe on a monthly basis, maybe on a bi-monthly basis. Think about it. When you have an appraisal every 6 months, is it actually doing the job? Because how are you tracking it? If you're setting someone's goals on an annual basis or every 6 months, how do you track to see if they're actually being done? What, a year later? That's too late. You'd never know. You need to be more strategic in your planning and how you're getting people out there and developing more from them. So one-to-one appraisals, okay, it should be more frequent than maybe you are currently using. Performance management also comes under constructive feedback. You know, I speak to far too many people when they say, okay, when I have feedback, it's always positive. And some managers may be afraid of giving what's deemed as negative feedback. In actual fact, it needs to be constructive. The right way of driving high performance within the organization is going to be giving positive feedback followed by something that's going to stretch and challenge the employee. That's where it becomes constructive. So you need to be able to say, hey, you're doing great at this. However, this is the area that needs improvement. Don't just say this is the area that's going to need improvement. How are you going to improve it? Your targets need to be SMART. Now, if you've not come across that, SMART is a target plan, which is in your leading people's workbook, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time. So you're saying improve this by doing this, by this. It needs to be really specific. You can't just say, oh, improve this by next summer. The person's never going to do it. So you need to be more constructive, and you need to be more specific and achievable and realistic, and set specific time goals. And they should be coming up, whether it's in your quarterly performance reviews, your annual ones, or even in those informal sessions. Catch up with the team and make sure you're developing and managing them. I mean, I've here at the bottom I've put, can you use these to develop performance? Well, that's for you to decide. You know, through many different organizations like yours right now, there's so much change happening, okay? The worst thing that you can do is have the change happen, but lose track of what the individual and the team's targets are. Because if you lose track, then they're never going to be able to grow and develop. You know, you're just growing and you'll be forgetting about the things that matter in this situation. But how do you drive a high performance team? Okay, there is a theory which is in the workbook, which is Tuckman's theory. So write this down if you've never come across it before. Tuckman talks about the stages of a high performing team. He says they start with a forming, then they go into storming, norming, and performing, okay? So you need to follow all these 4 methods in order to succeed. When any team in the world forms, they start to make friends. They have concerns, they have worries, okay? That's just natural. When a team then becomes more focused, they start to storm their performance, which is good for motivation and morale. Now, what can happen then is norming would happen, because a team are situated, they're settled in, they're looking at their results, they're understanding how things are working. They're in that settled phase. And after that, they'll have performing. So yeah, forming, storming, norming, and performing. These are what are called the stages of a high performance team. Now, there is another stage which he then wrote afterwards, which is adjourning, where basically you could say, do we need to reevaluate it? Because after performing, the business or the goals which are set may dip a little. So you have to think about that and the offset at the same time. So Tuckman's theory, they are in your workbooks, but think about it. When you last joined a team, or when you had a team that worked with you, how did you do it? Did you find the team took a long time to form? Then did they go through a storming method? Then did it go into norming, performing? Do research this more on the Tuckman theory, and it's quite interesting to understand, because you can relate it to any team, whether it's a professional team, whether it's a personal team, any team. Even if you look at the characteristics of a football team and putting the team together and getting them to work together to understand how each other works before they start to perform well, they're the key targets. So Tuckman's theory of high performance teams, and they are in your workbooks: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Okay, so I mean, what else drives a high performance team? Okay, you've got the stages of it, but it's the culture of the organization as well. Now, if you haven't watched the last live session, I spoke about Charles Handy's models of organizational culture and how they're fitting into a session which could be a power-based culture, a role-based culture, a task-based culture, and a person-based culture. Well, personally, I feel the task-based culture, remember the one, if you have seen it, which is like a net. So people start to work with each other from different areas. They get out of their silos and they start to perform a lot more. So this task-based culture is something that creates high-performance teams, because it creates stronger outcomes, it creates more innovation, strategic positioning, but also, most importantly, it helps to deliver more trust and transparency in your organization. And these are key things that you need to be aware of if you're driving that high performance team method. Remember those. So what drives high performance? Well, you can say it was the model like this, you know, the high performance, You can say it's the culture of the organization at the same time. Now, high performance, as I've just mentioned in that one, will come when a team feels that they have high trust and high transparency in the organization. That will only ever form when a team has motivation. And motivating your team is going to be key. Many organizations feel that a key way to motivate people is going to be through giving rewards or many different elements like that. However, this isn't always correct, because rewards could often be seen as dehumanizing. And if you want to research that more, it's the work of Cohn, who talks about the trouble with A grades, stars, and performance techniques. A great motivational model to look at is actually Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, if you've never come across this before, it's a pyramid, okay? So basically what this particular author is looking at is, before you start to give people their positioning and where they're going to succeed in the business, you need to get the basics right. You need to make sure, you know, they feel comfortable. They need to feel safe in the organization. From that, you make sure they're performing well and they're nurturing within the team. So you could say very similar to that Tuckman model. Once they've got that, they need to have this stage of love and being belonged. You know, they're performing well. They're getting recognition. Interesting statistic. 72% of people say one of the most motivating things to have in a company is recognition from their line manager. Unfortunately, a lot of line managers don't do that. So it just shows how you can help someone to perform a lot more just by doing the simplest of tasks. And then once they've done that, they can work into high self-esteem and getting that high engagement. Now, interestingly, running along this model, which is in your workbooks, is Herzberg's model. Now, he talks about hygiene factors and motivational factors. The hygiene factors that could motivate people could be something like policies, job salaries, working together, whereas some people have motivational factors such as being challenged, having recognition, the sense of achievement and status. So remember, rewards and being rewarded isn't always just about money. It's about having that self-recognition and that development within an organization. And that's where you're going to see it. I think Herzberg's factors and Maslow's hierarchy of needs really do showcase this, and they complement each other in methods. So do start to research those as well. Alongside that, if you are looking for additional resources, check out a guy on YouTube called Daniel Pink. Now, here's an interesting video where he talks about people being motivated through autonomy, mastery, and purpose, okay? Autonomy is when people have the self-desire, the intrinsic motivation to go out and do something. Mastery is because they want to get good at it. The same way maybe you're watching this video or doing this course because you want to get better at what you're doing. The purpose at the end is to have that goal, that self-achievement and recognition. You know, so when you're managing a team, I don't want you to just think of high performance and rewards as something which money will drive forward, because obviously in your case it's not. You have to look at what each individual team member wants and how you're going to flow it with the Tuckman theory. And just one little thing to end off. When you're setting high performance, you need to think of the objectives. You know, things need to have a purpose, which is how you're going to drive a positive team. You know, so does it fit in with the organization's visions and mission? Does it fit in with the organization's strategies and objectives? Does it meet the managers and the team's objectives? And does it meet the departmental plans and objectives, and not forgetting the individual objectives? Remember, as a manager, and if you're going to drive a team forward, you need to make sure you're achieving the business goals, the team goals, and the individual goals. All three are linked together. And if you want to drive a high performance team, these are the key things that you need to look at and need to be able to consider when you're driving that. So this was a very quick to the point session this week. We've looked at many different things, from what is a high performance team, how do you make the high performance team, such as the Tuckman model. We looked at how it's linked to organizational culture and high performance. And I covered two motivational theories, the Herzberg and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, don't forget, you can contact me throughout the next couple of weeks before we have our next live session, judging and supporting you within the workbooks that you're currently going through. So message me after this session if you have any other comments or need any other support on this. Thank you. Goodbye.